If you were to see some of my chairs, they would probably stand out. And people who know me and who've seen a few, they said, "Oh, I can always tell your chairs on Pinterest. When I
Yeah.
see them on Pinterest, I know they belong to Chair Whimsy."
This is Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio with your host, Tyler Jorgensen.
Welcome out to Biz Ninja Entrepreneur Radio. I am your host, Tyler Jorgensen, and today I have a guest who's going to share an amazing story because I have heard this guest story a couple of times about and about her project and what she teaches people to do. It's so untraditional from a lot of the guests that we've had on the show, and it's emotional because I don't know what it is, and we're going to talk to it. So, Wendy Conklin, welcome out to the show. We're going to talk about Chair Whimsy.
Thanks for having me.
So, all right, I usually ask this question. I'm going to do it the same for you because I think it's going to be interesting. When was the moment that you first realized that you were an entrepreneur?
You know, honestly, it was much later than when I actually was. I grew up kind of thinking entrepreneurs are kind of weird people, like who would do that kind of thing. And the funny thing is I just didn't call myself that until probably about 4 years ago, honestly. But I was doing the work. And so that's what I thought was kind of funny, is like, oh, I guess I am one of those.
Yeah.
And what I also realized is like my temperament is probably the perfect kind of temperament to be an entrepreneur, because I'm a self-starter. I don't need accountability. You know, if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. So I think having those traits, and they're just innate. I didn't really develop them. It's just kind of what I am and how I am, kind of the typical workaholic type person. It actually worked out good.
Yeah, self-starter, high integrity. Those are all really good things. For those of the listeners and people watching the show who don't know what Chair Whimsy is, give us the overview of what Chair Whimsy is and, how you came up with that idea.
So, I typically introduce myself as, I do chairs and I teach other people how to do what I do. But that was kind of a long process, because it started about 10 years ago when I had a different career. I had been in education. I had previously been a teacher, and then I became an author and a presenter. So I would travel around the country training teachers, school districts, superintendents on curriculum that they would buy from our company. So they may buy one of my books, and then I would just go and train them on that. And so I took an upholstery course 10 years ago, exactly during this fall. And just because I wanted to always learn, and I was always trying to do things to make me like better at my job. So all these outside things, I wanted to be a better writer. I wanted to be a better presenter. So I would challenge myself outside of my work to get uncomfortable, take some risks, learn something new. And so upholstery was just one of those things that I was checking off the box, thinking, okay, I always wanted to kind of learn this. Let's take some classes and have some fun. And by the end of it, I realized, oh, I kind of like this. I have like 5 chairs I've done now. Let's, put them up on Etsy and see if I could just make some money. So it was just all a hobby. It was just something to try. And after I sold a few, then that idea planted in my mind, like, I wonder if this could be a thing. I wonder if I could really make money at this, because I was selling my chairs for so cheap.
Right.
Because I didn't have the guts, I didn't have the guts to price them where they needed to be. I thought, well, I'm just a beginner. And everything. But so that's kind of the beginning of the journey. And it took me 6.5 years before I could quit my day job. There's that side hustle it grew into, and I needed it to make more money. My income is necessary in our family. So, I had daughters that were in middle school and high school getting ready to go to college. How can I could not just quit my job to do my dream. It was something that it was painful. It's a very painful process.
Well, I think that is actually something that I encourage entrepreneurs a lot of the time, is when you're trying to make the transition from employee to business owner and to, there's not just jump, right? It's okay to build it on the side and maybe take a little bit longer, but build it with some certainty. There's a fine line between like courageous and just being chaotic and just throwing caution to the wind, right? Especially when you have people you got to take care of. So
absolutely.
Since some of our guests are going to be listening to this without the aid of visual,
Mhm.
I'm going to do my best to describe what you do. So you find old high back chairs that have upholstery on them, typically, right? I'm sure you probably do other types.
Mhm.
And most of the time, those chairs are kind of bland and boring. And you
Mhm.
reupholster them with vibrant colors and patterns and designs.
Yeah.
And then you teach other people how to do that too. I feel like there's so much more to that. There's like an emotional side to that, right?
Yeah.
Like talk us through the emotion that goes into redesigning a chair like this.
So they are mainly antique and vintage chairs. Although, I may find some new chairs that I just want to make over. In the
Right.
past like 10 years or so, we've kind of gone through anyone who pays attention to design. We've gone through the farmhouse movement, the shabby chic movement before that. And it was a lot of whites and beiges, some modern movements, where a lot of black and white. I've always loved color. I've always worn colorful clothes, colorful earrings. I mean, things like that. I just like it. And whenever I was taking those upholstery courses, I remember looking around the room and it like dawned on me that, okay, anyone can learn upholstery. It is just a skill. Like you learn the steps, right? But not everyone has a good eye for design. And that's what I realized even in that moment. And of course, this is subjective because it's what I like. But, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I have this. Like I can figure out mixing and matching patterns together, color schemes. I can do really bright things on these chairs, which at the time nobody was doing. And I really had to just get my courage up and say, you know what? I don't care if other people like this. This is what I really love. And when I was able to do that and just go with what lit me up, that's what really set me apart. First of all, like really niching myself in colorful chairs. And if you think of the name Chair Whimsy, that gives you a visual idea of what you're about to see. It's
Yeah.
not, plain grain sack chairs. It is colorful. There's lots of florals, there's stripes, there's polka dots. I mean, so I try to do a lot of mixing and matching, and I really do let my emotions guide me when I'm designing. Like if I see something that takes my breath away, I know it's the right choice. And sometimes it takes a while to kind of figure it out, but that's kind of the general thing. If you were to see some of my chairs, they would probably stand out. And people who know me and who've seen a few, they said, "Oh, I can always tell your chairs on Pinterest. When I
Yeah.
see them on Pinterest, I know they belong to Chair Whimsy."
Yeah. Yeah. It is very whimsical, right? And you do have a distinct, vibrant style that I think because you let your emotion into your design and into what you're
Yeah.
doing, it definitely stands out. Now, you mentioned that when you first started this, you did a few as a hobby and then you decided to sell them, but you undercharged. So talk
Yeah.
to me a little bit about pricing. How much are these kind of chairs going for? And then how did you move up and figure that out?
My chairs typically run, if you have a dining chair, let's say, they're typically $1,200 a piece now, plus the cost of fabric and then shipping on top of that. So if you do a set of chairs, you can imagine it's gonna add up. But when I first started out, I just looked this up yesterday because I'm working on a book and I wanted to write in the acknowledgments. The very first person I should thank was my very first order that came from Brooklyn, New York.
Oh, very
And
cool.
it was a gal, and I looked it up and I thought, oh my gosh, I only charged for $200 for this chair, and that included the cost of fabric. And
Right.
so you could tell, like, and this is the biggest thing among artisans and makers is they never ever charge enough. Like it's something about valuing your worth and your perspective, and we make up all these excuses as to why we don't charge enough, why ours isn't worth enough, why no one will ever pay. But what I've realized is that it's all perceived value from the buyer. Like when something's a higher price, we look at it and think, oh my gosh, that must be very valuable. But when there's something low price, and if you catch yourself on this, it makes sense. But a low price thing, we often say, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with it? There's got to be something wrong that it's so
Right.
cheap. And so, like, if we can detach ourselves from that emotion and trying to tie it to, oh, we're not that good and all the excuses we give, if we will kind of back up and start, okay, what does the chair cost me to buy? What are the materials? What are the fabrics? What are all the things? and start adding that up, and then figure up your time that you're putting into it. And, for me, like, I'm getting faster because I've been doing chairs for 10 years. So I can do them much faster than I did in the beginning. In the beginning, I was learning, and
Right.
I can kind of say it was okay that some of my prices were lower because I was practicing. I was
Yeah.
really learning some things. But now I kind of have some set prices, and every year I do raise my prices because the demand for how many people want them and what I can personally fulfill is, really goes down. And
Yeah.
I mean, so the prices have to go up
Yeah.
at that point
Hey,
because I
that's
don't
basic.
have
It's
enough
basic
time.
economics, right? It just
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. Yeah. What's fascinating, we work with a lot of local boutiques and crafters and people trying to get into the business side of it, and going through their cost of goods and helping them understand it's not just the products. How many hours did you spend on this? And then it's sad a little bit the first time they have the realization that either they've been working for free or less than minimum wage when they thought they were building a business. And I'm like, no, you're not building a business yet. You're not even building a job yet. Like,
and that
it's
is
sad.
heartbreaking. That is heartbreaking. I mean, I remember I would get around to January 1st every year, and I would go back through and total up, okay, what did I make? And like, I was breaking even, and it was so heartbreaking to me because I was working my heart out at 2 jobs, okay? Because I had my regular job that I had to keep, and every evening, every weekend, I was working out in my shop, trying to do chair orders, trying to grow that business. It was really, really tough until I just, I finally had that epiphany, like, oh my gosh, I've got to raise my prices, and being pressured by a business coach at the time. Like, yeah, you need to, sometimes we need permission. We need someone to give us permission or order us around that you better raise those prices, I mean, whatever you need, whatever your personality needs. But for me, that's what it really took. And so if I just abide by a rule and I don't get emotional about it, but I say, okay, when I start getting too many orders and I can't keep up, this is when my prices go up. And every time I do it, trust me, I get sick to my stomach. I hate it. I'm like, oh, great, here we go again. But every time I keep getting chair orders. So, I mean, it never stops, and like one of my gimmicks that I say, because I've got a group of ladies in my Business of Chairs course that's kind of like a coaching style course. And it's for ladies who want to flip and sell like what I've done, and they're starting out. And so, I always tell them, if something is not selling, raise the price and see what happens, because often it will sell when the price goes up. So and that's kind of a fun little experiment to try. I mean, you can always change the price back down if you need to, but I have found more often than not that prices, when you raise those prices, you'll end up selling the thing that was hard to sell. So it's just very strange how that works.
It is. And it's amazing how much pricing is an internal issue, even though it shouldn't be. And what happens sometimes is we think, well, I would never pay $1,500 for a chair, so nobody else would either. I'm like, well, there's people driving cars that you don't drive. There's people buying houses that you don't buy. Like, just because you wouldn't, they also aren't the ones that are going to go do it themselves, right? So it's okay that it's not a moral issue between the two personalities. It's just two different buyer types, two different personality types. And I think it's okay.
Yeah.
But we do sometimes need that permission and that reminder and that coaching. How important, in your experience, is having a business coach? Has that been super helpful for you?
Oh my gosh, it's been life-changing. Like, I will never, ever go without one. So, I'm in my 3rd one right now, and I'm going into my 3rd year there. But it has been instrumental because I don't need accountability for that. But what I do need is advice from people who are smarter than me, who can see, because other people can see your business from different ways. You can't see it when you're in it sometimes. And they can see you from different perspectives and give you that good sound advice. And it needs to be someone you trust. I think your morals need to align, all of that. And, you and I have the same one. So, and she's pretty amazing. And I mean, so to me, it's been life-changing. It was my first coach that really pressured me into doing a course, my very first course, which is my signature one. And I didn't want to, because all those same thoughts, like, well, who's going to pay me to do that? To learn from, no one wants to learn from me. Can't they just go to YouTube and learn this. And she was like, no, they want to learn from you. And I was like,
Right.
really? And I remember I put up a post on Instagram and Facebook and asked, okay, if I did a course, would anyone want to learn? I was like thinking, oh, it's going to be crickets today. And I mean, like, so many people commented, I couldn't believe it. And so I was like, all right, I
That's good
have to do it
validation.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So in your background, before, starting a business and really becoming the queen of whimsical chairs on Pinterest, right? I think your images and your art has really like left you, right? It's beyond you because it just gets shared all around around the world. So, but before doing that, you were in education. Is there anything that you learned from your career in education, and you're an author and presenter, right? Your previous careers. Is there anything that played into what you currently do? How has that supported you as an entrepreneur?
Every bit of it has. And, when I left that job, I thought, okay, I'm done. I'm done with teaching. I'm done with, writing and all the things, because I didn't see how that was going to play into doing chairs, but my business like kind of quickly evolved. And when I was challenged to, hey, Wendy, people want to learn from you. You need to create this course that can teach them to do what you do. Well, that totally, my teaching skills came right back out of the closet, and it's like, oh, well, I know how to teach. I know how to put a course together because I was a curriculum writer, and so it was like, wow, all those things from my past has helped me. I know how to talk to adults and teach them because that's what I have been doing for, about 15 years after I left the classroom to do it to school districts. And so I knew how to talk to mainly women, and that's who I now have as my audience. So like every single thing has helped me with my business today. And just the fact of trying to be creative in the way that I show my content, like, because I am a content creator. I mean, yes, I create chairs, but when you have a business, and you should take care of the free advertising, which is Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Pinterest, YouTube. I mean, like, all this is free. And so, but it's a lot of work too. And so creating content for those things where you can think about, okay, what's a creative way I could show this or get my message across that I want to tell people about X, Y, and Z, all of that from my past has come into play in this job that I have now in creating content on a daily basis. So, I mean, it's so cool to see how that, all the things you do in the past somehow, I think, do come around and help you with whatever you end up doing at this moment and in the future. So who knows what that's going to be,
Yeah. I think especially if you have a learning mindset, right? If you have a goal that if you're open-minded to growth and to learning, then you find lessons in the past and lessons in what you've done. So you've got this going, all started as a hobby, turned into a business. Let's talk through what that means, right? So you started selling some courses. How much have you done in courses? Like, is this a real business? I mean, I think sometimes people hear people are selling stuff online or teaching courses, and maybe there's a little bit of money in it.
So I think I am very lucky in that I have a skill that a lot of people want to learn, or if they hear about it, like they may not be sitting there going, oh, I want to, planning, they want to learn this, but when they hear about it, it is something like, oh, wouldn't that be fun to learn? And so, let's start right there, because I'm not sure that every course can be, $1 million course type of thing.
Sure.
But it's done. The courses have done really well. So I not only have that, but I have other little courses like, how to search for great fabrics online, because everyone started asking me, where do you get your fabrics? So I was like, oh, well, I need to have like a $37 course on that, kind of thing. But my signature course is DIY upholstery. That's the first one I started with. It's $347, or I have a payment plan. And my so I open it up 4 times a year. So I do these pressure launches 4 times a year. 2 are bigger ones in that I do a Facebook challenge, the ugly chair challenge with them. And people have to learn the design behind doing, once you know how to design a chair and how much fun that is, okay, well then you need to learn upholstery to actually do the work, because doing upholstery isn't sexy or necessarily a blast, but it is fun to know how to do something so that you can update your chairs in your home, or if you want to make a business out of it or give them as gifts or whatever you want. But so I open it 4 times a year, and I just had my biggest launch back in August, and it's open for 5 days. and I made $176,000, 176,000 on that
Wow.
5 day, which is my biggest I've ever done, but over time, I have probably, I mean, all my courses together, and I just started my upholstery course 3 years ago, but that with all the other little courses together, I've sold well over $1 million in 3 years. So
Amazing.
it's done really well,
Yeah.
surprisingly. And it's been great for me because it's changed my family's life, but it's been good for the people who are taking the course because they're learning something new,
Yeah.
something they want to learn. And a lot of people who take the course are older people, older women who are finding like a new lease on life. I mean, they're realizing, oh, I have purpose. I can design, how much fun this is. And they're really learning to express their personality and their creativity onto a chair, which
Yeah.
is so much fun to do. So yes, the typical stripping a chair and repairing the chair and all that kind of stuff, that's not necessarily fun, but it's the means to the end. So you
Right.
learn these things so that you can design, and the design is really where all the fun part happens for my students. So it's benefiting me and my family and the people I can help, but it's benefiting the people who are taking the course too. And that is so rewarding to feel like, I'm making a difference in people's lives. A stupid little chair business is, how I would refer to it. But this stupid little chair business has literally changed people's lives. And even people who don't buy my chairs or don't do my courses, I get messages from them on Instagram and Facebook saying, every morning I look for your post because I've suffered with depression my whole life, and they just bring me so much joy and happiness. And so it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, I don't really sell chairs. I don't really sell courses. I sell joy, or
Absolutely.
bring joy, and so
Yeah.
it's just so fun to be able to see that.
Like I said, your chairs are emotional. They
Yeah.
evoke a lot of emotion, and they do that whimsy, that the mismatched patterns and the bright colors, like they're uplifting, right? And so
Yeah.
what's interesting is I still hear you talk like a little bit hesitant about talking about your course not being stupid, right? Like it's actually amazing and it's done these great things.
Yeah.
And you want to like bring it back down. But talk to us about some of the success like people who have gone through the course have had. So because you said that some people just do it as a hobby, but other people are actually doing it and turning it into, a profit center, right? So what have some of
Yeah.
your students been able to do after taking your course?
When I did my ugly chair challenge, like probably it's been a year and a half ago, I did the first one. And, this one lady joined the challenge just because it's fun. It's like $10 to join. So it's easy. It's an easy yes,
Right.
and it's about designing the chairs. So this one lady ended up joining, and she ended up joining my course subsequently right after that. And we got on a 10-minute coffee chat Zoom meeting to, just meet each other and things like that, because that was a bonus for signing up early. And she told me, she said, I'm an accountant by trade. And she said, I thought it'd just be fun to do the ugly chair challenge. She said, I had no intention of doing, chairs. And this was a month after she joined that we had this meeting. And she said, but I have just finished my first set. I'm putting them up for sale. And like, she has gone on to sell chairs. And that wasn't even on her radar, anything she thought she would do. This accountant, who you would think, would be more of a, non-creative type person, has found her creative vibe there, so that's been really fun to watch. I have other women in my Business of Chairs course who are selling, and one of them, she probably could quit her day job, but she's like 2.5 years from retirement right now. And so she is going to stick it out to get that full retirement, but she is so busy taking custom chair orders and shipping them all over the US. So she's got a really great design aesthetic that people are seeking her out for. So she's been super successful. I have another gal in my Business of Chairs course who has been doing upholstery for years, but just couldn't make money. And so now she's starting to bring in money. She's raised her prices, but she's also creating her own type of course. She does big, comfortable chairs. And so she's going to do a course on that. And I'm going to help support her because I don't want to do that kind of course.
Yeah,
I
that's
could,
great.
but it's not something I love. And it is something she loves. And there's some of my students and people that I know that want to take it that next step further. And so it's really fun to kind of sit back and think, wow, these are people who are just like reaching for the moon that probably had never thought about doing that before. So it's
Yeah.
amazing how it can spark them as well.
I love that. Now, entrepreneurship and running a business isn't without its challenges. What's one of the
Yeah.
major challenges that you've had to face over these past few years, and how'd you overcome it?
Gosh, there's so many to choose from.
Yeah.
um, you know, I think really some of the main things are all the little nitty gritty things that have to be done in a business. When you're the CEO, the owner of a business, you not only have to produce the thing like I do, like with the chairs. It's not like I can go hire somebody to produce a Chair Whimsy chair, because when I do a chair, it's all in the moment, in the design, like where I'm putting the fabric, because I call this chair styling, so,
Yeah.
it matters. It's this flower peeking in over here. Does that look better than down here? So it's all that. So that's not something I can necessarily hire out, but I can hire out people helping me to strip the chair down or to sand the chairs or things like that. So one of the big issues has been trying to get help to help me get all this stuff done, even all the content I have to create. But how about answering my info emails or organizing my retreat that I do for creative business women, like getting the t-shirts ordered and all the logistics and going picking up the food for the retreat, the wine and things like that, and making sure everyone has everything they need and communicating with them, being my point person. So I've been able to hire like virtual assistants, neighbors who wanted a part-time job who are super organized, people like that. So that has been a big problem. And now just being willing to hire people and pay them hourly. Like I don't have to worry that I got to have a full-time person. It's like, project it out, give
Right.
this person their project and pay them by the hour to do the work that you need to do or need to get
Absolutely.
done. And you just possibly can't do it all yourself.
Now, you mentioned that this business has given you and your family, it's helped your lifestyle. It's been a blessing to you and your family. What is one non-business item on Wendy's personal bucket list that you're going to accomplish in the next 12 months?
I don't know, because all I think about is my business, but it's because I want to,
Yeah. Oh,
not that I
totally.
don't.
I just think it's
I
amazing.
mean,
Like, we get to travel again. Are there things,
oh,
things like that?
yeah. Yeah. Well, so I have been traveling some
Good.
recently, so that's kind of fun. What I love doing the most is, this just sounds kind of crazy, but what really makes me happy is when I can play. And part of that play is like doing my own makeovers in my house. I love like redoing a room, like putting up wallpaper. I do it all, and I love figuring out the design. So that is like my happy place. That's where I can be real creative. I don't do it because I have to. I do it because I want to. So I treat my house kind of as my palette
Have
where
fun.
I just experiment and show my creativity. And so something always needs to be updated. And so that's what's fun for me. And then I can turn that into content for my followers too, because it inspires them and gives them ideas for what they can do as well. So it kind of is twofold. I don't really mean for it to be a work thing, but it's something I do just for fun. And that truly is playing for me. It's what I really enjoy doing. So if I
That's
say
great.
what I'm going to be doing the next 12 months, yeah, it's going to be more of that.
More room makeovers. I love it. So
Mhm.
everyone, wherever you're listening, and I hope that you go check out Wendy Conklin and Chair Whimsy. I think you can find her on all the socials under Chair Whimsy and chairwhimsy.com. And to all my biz ninjas, wherever you're listening or watching, it is your turn to go out and do something.